What's going on, everybody? David here, back with another video. So we have a lot to discuss today. We're going to talk about the stimulus checks and what's going to happen this week. We're also going to listen to Bernie Sanders. He's going to be talking about this infrastructure bill, and this bill is important. This is another stimulus for the American people. Not only is it about roads and bridges, but we're also talking about helping people, helping the elderly, helping the disabled, helping people who are at the college age and want to attend college. So there's a lot in this infrastructure bill, and it's going to be a two-part bill. So we're going to listen to Bernie Sanders talk a little bit about that. But first off, you guys can do me a favor. Please hit the like button. It does help with the YouTube algorithm. Also, please subscribe to the channel. Hit that little bell notification. That way you'll get notified anytime we put out a video. Okay, so I want to take a look and listen to Bernie Sanders first, and then we'll talk about the stimulus checks, and then we're going to go to some of the polls that I actually did. I did some polls, so we'll take a look at those at the very end. So here we go.
Chair of the Senate Budget Committee, Senator Bernie Sanders. Chairman Sanders, thanks so much for joining us. Happy Passover to you. President Biden's plan includes a proposed corporate tax rate increase that's half the increase of what you've called for. It does not include a new tax on wealth, which you also support. And although it does contain measures to combat climate change, it is a fraction of the size of the Green New Deal. Now, Biden calls the plan bold, but it clearly doesn't go as far as a President Sanders plan would have. Is this plan bold enough for you?
Well, I think it's a serious proposal dealing with some of the serious crises that we face. I think every American understands that our infrastructure, our roads and our bridges, water systems, wastewater plants are falling apart, and we can create millions of jobs rebuilding them. I think the vast majority of the American people understand that climate change is an existential threat to the planet. We can create millions more jobs at good wages, rebuilding, transforming our energy system away from fossil fuel to energy efficiency and sustainable energy. I think also most Americans know that we have a major housing crisis, and that's not only 500,000 people who are homeless today, it is 19 million households that are spending 50% of their limited incomes on housing. All of those issues are dealt with in the president's plan. What you're going to see right now, Jake, is that Congress is going to take a hard look at that plan. I think that, for example, as you indicate in terms of climate, we're probably going to want to put more money into that area. I think there's a lot of work that has to be done in terms of health care, the high cost of prescription drugs, making our colleges affordable for young people and dealing with student debt. So right now, I think in an unprecedented moment, the president has given us a serious proposal. A lot more work has to be done in that regard.
So you see that this infrastructure bill, there's a lot in there. And I did a detailed list of the different things that are in this infrastructure bill, at least the first part of the, actually I did it for both parts, but I'm going to revise that and add some more things because there have been some things that were added when Biden released the official proposal. Now, this is a proposal, so understand that. So President Biden, this is his proposal. It's going to have to go to Congress. Congress is they're going to have to create a bill out of this. And so some of this stuff might get left out. Some of the stuff, they might add some things as well. So don't look at this and think, oh, this is it. This is where we're going with it. This is the angle that the president wants to go. However, this doesn't mean that all the stuff that Bernie Sanders just said right now is going to be in this infrastructure bill. But the target is to get most of this stuff in there.
Do you think that things that one could argue are important but not necessarily part of an infrastructure package, such as dealing with college debt, you think that should be part of the bill?
Well, you know, it depends on what you call infrastructure. Roads and bridges and tunnels are infrastructure. But I think many of us see a crisis in human infrastructure. When a working class family can't find good quality, affordable child care, that's human infrastructure. One of the areas that I am working on right now is the need to expand Medicare in order to provide dental care and hearing aids and eyeglasses for millions and millions of seniors who need these services but can't afford it. Is that infrastructure? I think it is. Look, Jake, the truth is, in so many ways, we are behind many other countries throughout the world in providing for working families and the elderly and the children. And I think now is the time to begin addressing our physical infrastructure and our human infrastructure. And I want to see that happen as soon as possible.
So that's going to be a new talking point, human infrastructure. So not just roads and bridges, but human infrastructure as well. So we'll hear more about that in the future, I'm sure.
That path, which is a path based very much in your principles as a progressive and and in your leadership as the chairman, is a path that you know will make it more difficult to get Republican support in the Senate. You just heard Secretary Granholm suggest that it seems, at least my interpretation of what she said was, it seems fine to her and to President Biden that they use reconciliation rules so that they would pass this package with 50 Democratic votes plus Vice President Harris. They don't need the 60. President Biden is still, at the very least, giving lip service to the idea of making this bipartisan, says he wants to meet with Republicans in the Oval Office to negotiate the bill. Frankly, do you think he's wasting his time?
Well, we'll see. I mean, I think Secretary Granholm made the important point, is that what we are proposing, what the president is proposing, is bipartisan. Vast, millions and millions of Republicans, independents, and Democrats understand the crises that they face, that we face as a nation, and want to go forward. Unfortunately, you have Republicans in the Congress who are moving very far to the right, who are not only ignoring what the American people want to see done, they are often ignoring what people in their own party want to be done. Let me tell you something. If you are a Republican mayor in this country, you understand that you need significant help for infrastructure. If you are a Republican in an agricultural area, you understand what climate change is doing to your ability to produce the crops that you need. And furthermore, I think there is in this country, Jake, an understanding that the level of income and wealth inequality that we have now is unsustainable and is immoral. We can't continue to have two people owning more wealth than the bottom 40% of the American people, major corporation after major corporation, not paying a nickel in federal income tax.
Right.
So when people say, well, isn't this an expensive proposal? It is. But the time is long overdue to demand that the wealthiest people in this country and the largest corporations start paying their fair share of taxes.
Okay, and I want to focus on this too. He's talking about the bipartisanship, and we hear this a lot. So we hear, we want to make this bipartisan. The reality is, and I actually agree with what Bernie Sanders is saying here, if the people want it, the American people, if that's bipartisan, if the majority of the American people want something, it should be something that gets through. And we should not have gridlock when it comes to Congress, because realistically, if these Congress people were representing the American people, then these bills would be getting passed without any problem. Just like the last stimulus package, that should have gotten passed no problem, because you had 70% of the people wanted it. And so 70% of the people want it, and then it goes to Congress, and then you have a split, and it's split right down party lines. Then that just shows you that side did not represent the American people. And so, and I don't care if it's a Democrat or Republican, usually that's the way it goes. If Republicans are in power, it's the same thing. Democrats are automatically opposed when it comes to Congress. If the Democrats are in power, Republicans are automatically opposed. And when we have a system that's run like this, it's not efficient. It's not going to go anywhere, because the American people want one thing, and then you have politicians, they just want to represent the party and not represent the people. So I agree with them when it comes to this. It's bipartisan mainly because the people want it. If the people want it, they should be moving forward to try to get that done. So if that means budget reconciliation, if that means that they're going to have to see if they can do a budget reconciliation for this, then by all means, go ahead and do that. Now, there are some issues when it comes to budget reconciliation. They can only use it once per year. So this is going to be one of those situations where they're going to have to see if the Senate parliamentarian rules if it's okay to do it or not. Even if she rules that it's not okay, I will post a link at the end of this video so you guys can check out exactly what their options are when it comes to budget reconciliation, because they still have another angle that they can play if the Senate parliamentarian doesn't want to go along with it. But let's go ahead and continue with Bernie Sanders.
You focus just on 50 votes on Democrats, if that's the expectation. I'm not saying that that's your game plan, but if that's what you think is probably going to happen, there's still an issue of party unity that might be difficult, and more difficult with infrastructure than with COVID relief. Progressives such as yourself want to go big. There are more centrist Democrats, Joe Manchin, for example, who has proved himself to be, in a real position of power, worried about cost. Manchin says it's incredibly important to him to make this bill bipartisan. Your committee is going to play a key role in the process. Are you confident every Senate Democrat is going to support this bill when it comes time to vote, including Manchin?
Well, you'll have to talk to Mr. Manchin, but I think that at the end of the day, you got 50 Democrats in the caucus, so any one of them can say, I'm not supporting this. But we all understand that in this unprecedented moment in American history, when we have gone through the worst year in the modern history of this country, with so many people dying and getting sick and our economy tanking, that we have got to work with the president on an agenda that speaks to the needs of the working class and the middle class and low-income people who have, for so many years, really had their needs ignored. So I am confident. Look, there are differences of opinion. Every one of the Democrats has a different point of view. But at the end of the day, I think Chuck Schumer has been doing a good job trying to bring people together to say, you know what, the future of America is at stake. The future of American democracy is at stake. Because so many people have reached the conclusion the government doesn't address their needs. Working people are working longer hours for low wages. Mm-hmm. We have got to speak to that pain that's out there. And if your question is, do I think we're going to come together to do it? Yes, I do.
I should note that the Biden plan does not lift the cap on SALT taxes, state and local tax deductions. That overwhelmingly benefits high-income earners in predominantly blue states. Repealing it, however, is popular among Democrats, especially those from high-tax states like California and New York. A lot of House Democrats said they're not going to support the bill unless this SALT cap provision is included. Does that need to be in the bill?
Well, look, these are one of the million issues that are going to have to be dealt with. At the end of the day, people who come from big cities have a different perspective than people who come from rural communities. We're going to have to work these things out. But I do believe, given the crises the country faces, and the need to create millions of good-paying jobs, the need to expand health care, to guarantee health care to so many more people today who are uninsured or underinsured, the need to take on the pharmaceutical industry and lower the high cost of prescription drugs. Mm-hmm. I think you are going to see the Democratic caucus coming together and pass very, very significant legislation.
All right, Senator Bernie Sanders, independent.
Okay, so that was Bernie Sanders. So we're going to follow this. We're going to continue to follow this infrastructure bill, and it's going to be a two-part bill. So we know what the first part has in it, and we'll learn this week what the second part has in it. But this is one of those situations where this can help a lot of people. So we'll continue to follow it. All right, so let's go ahead and move over to our calendar here, and we'll talk a little bit about the calendar, and then I'm going to go over some of the polls that I did last week. So we know that people receive their stimulus checks this period here, so Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday of last week. And now the important thing is yesterday and today, go to the Get My Payment portal, see where you are. If you have not received your stimulus check, see what your status is. The IRS has indicated that they have updated the system, and I've already received information from people letting me know, yes, I see something in the Get My Payment portal, and it's telling me I'm going to be receiving my stimulus check on the 7th or what have you. So make sure you go over there. Now, people getting paper checks and debit cards, the 5th and the 6th, check your mailbox if you have not received it already. Hopefully you'll receive it this week sometime. April 7th, that is when the electronic payments should actually go through. So if you have Direct Express, NetSpend, hopefully you'll receive your stimulus check via the electronic payment. So those are the important dates to look at. Now, the last thing I want to talk about are veterans. So VA beneficiaries, they're saying mid-April, which would be around the 14th. So hopefully they can roll that out, process that, and get that to the veterans by the 14th. So that's what we're looking at when it comes to that. All right, let's move down a little bit and let's talk a little bit about some of the polls that we did. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a look at the first poll here. Do you think we will see a fourth stimulus check? And we had 5,200 people participate in this poll. 55% of the people say yes. 45% of the people say no. This is going to be tough. I don't really see this happening anytime soon. We might, it could potentially happen, but it would have to be later on in the year, and we'd have to see some real drastic changes in the economy in order for that to happen. That's just my opinion. Now, that does not mean that there won't be benefits coming out of this infrastructure bill, things that can help people, but it might not. It's probably not going to be a direct payment. We haven't heard anything about that in this infrastructure bill. So the way it looks right now, if we see another stimulus check, it's going to be late this year. I don't see it happening anytime sooner. All right, let's go ahead and move on and take a look at this. The next poll here. Are you in favor of a $200 raise to Social Security? Okay, so we had 7,400 people participate in this vote, and you see unanimously 95% of the people say yes. Then you have 5% of the people saying no. This is another thing that I think it's been forgotten. Like, you don't hear politicians talking about it anymore. That's not a good sign. I continue to tell people, if you are really interested and you really want this to happen, you need to contact your congresspeople and let them know how important this is to you. I have information in the description. Just go down. You can call their switchboard, talk to your representative or your U.S. senator. And you can go on Twitter and you can send tweets out to them. You can share my video with them as well, so they can see that there is an audience. There are people that want this to happen. So hopefully we'll see where it goes, but we can hope for the best. But at this point, we're not hearing politicians talk about it. Okay. Next poll here is: do you think the IRS did a good job getting out stimulus checks? Okay, so we had 7,800 people participate in this poll, and 22% of the people said yes, that they did a great job. And you had 66% of the people said no, they struggled to get the checks out in a timely manner. And then you had 13% of the people said they did an okay job, but they could have been much quicker. Okay, and the last poll here is: do you think the $200 Social Security raise can be revived? Now, I talked a little bit about this. In my opinion, I think it's dead because they're not talking about it. The politicians aren't talking about it. But can it be revived? Is this a situation where if people do speak up and say, look, we want this, is this something that politicians will start talking about again? We had 6,200 people participate in this vote, and we had 70% of the people said, or 72% of the people said yes, 28% of the people said no. And so that's where we are with that poll. So the way that people are looking at it, they're saying, you know what, we can revive this, but it's gonna fall on you guys. And I've talked about this before. When you start looking at these different proposals that come out, we saw hazard pay last year, 6-7 months ago, and that was the big talk. And people were very appreciative of these people on the front lines working during COVID, and then it just kind of went away. They talked about it for a month, and then it was gone. And when it was gone, it never came back. And I don't think there was enough support, enough people talking about it to keep it there in the forefront. But that's one of those situations when you hear politicians make these statements. And when it comes to the $200 raise, they made this a year ago. They were talking about this. Elizabeth Warren was talking about this a year ago. And so you want to make sure you keep talking about it, because that will hold these politicians accountable, and they'll say, okay, you know what? Yes, we were talking about this. Let's see if we can't work this in some kind of way. Corporations do it all the time. Corporations they have lobbyists that will get in there and keep talking to these politicians and say, well, you remember you talked about this. Why aren't you moving forward with it? And so we need to do the same thing. We need to lobby Congress just like corporations lobby Congress. All right, so that's all I have for you guys today. Happy Easter. If you guys have any questions or anything like that, post it down below. If you like this video, please give me a thumbs up. Please subscribe for more, and I'll talk to you in the next one. Bye.